Welcome to the Three Tomatoes Happy Hour, and we do love happy hour and the clinking of glasses and cheers to all you fabulous women who are fully living your lives at every age and every stage. Hello, tomatoes, and welcome to this happy hour episode. I'm your host, Cheryl Benton, and today's topic is one that feels especially timely and timeless. We are talking about kindness. What does it mean to do good in the world, and how can we amplify it through storytelling, creativity, and connection? Joining me today is someone who embodies all of that and more. She is the multi-talented Valerie Smaldone. I'm also happy to call her a very dear friend of many years. She's been a great supporter and a longtime contributor to the Three Tomatoes. Many of you may instantly recognize her iconic voice from her award-winning years on 106.7 Lite FM radio. And if you're going to be watching this today, you'll actually get to see her too. Valerie is a seasoned broadcaster, interviewer of celebrities and all kinds of people in every walks of life. And now she is the co-founder of Just Do Good Entertainment, which is a production company that's dedicated to creating content that uplifts, inspires, and makes a meaningful impact. So, Valerie, I'm so happy to have you here today.
Hi, Cheryl. So nice to see you. It's always a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah, and we certainly all need kindness in these days more than ever. So, let's kind of start about how all this excited, because I know this started doing during the pandemic. And while most of us were making sourdough bread and binge watching on Suits, you actually got the opportunity to produce a film. So tell us what happened.
Well, I do like to eat sourdough bread, so that's a good thing. Yeah, life changed for all of us during 2020 plus, and I was doing Bagels and Broadway at the time, the radio show. Now, the show was about food and theater, and as we know, restaurants shut down, theater shut down, so this was quite a challenge. I really focused on Broadway people who were coming together in restaurants, the communities that came together. That became more of my show. And during this time, I interviewed some producers who had a company that were producing an audio drama for the Thursday night club novella. And as time went on, they got to know me. They asked me to come on board. And lo and behold, long story, but getting to the other side of it, I got to work on a film called The Thursday Night Club. The book is written by the fabulous author Stephen Manchester. It's about college students who are kind of concerned and consumed with their own lives and careers. And they're shown a way by a gentleman that they meet, the father of one of these students, that there's more to life and that there's more to be part of in a community aspect, to give back to others. It was a beautiful story. I ended up having the opportunity to not only produce it, but direct the film. Gloria Gaynor made her film acting debut, and we had a lot of serendipitous moments. Carmine Appice, a dear friend, did some of the music, original music. So there was a lot of elements that came together that was just beautiful. And when that film wrapped, and it's available to view on many platforms, the co-producers and I said, well, what do we want to do next? We want to stay in the lane of showing the best of humanity, how people can give back, how people can look outside themselves. And we started to work on this concept called Divine Renovation, which is a 2-season docuseries hosted by television icon Eric Estrada. We shot in Wilmington, North Carolina in the first season, and then northeastern Connecticut, Litchfield County area, the second season. So that's how I made the switch very suddenly from talent to behind the camera. I still voice some of the shows that we do. I host one of the shows that we do on camera. So somehow it's all holistic, and it has become my life's purpose at this time.
Well, I love it. And I love how you just jumped into trying something you had never tried before. And I think that's a very important message for anyone listening to this right now, because we tend to hold ourselves back by our limiting beliefs, as we all know. But I just love that we're going to talk about that a little bit later and just how you've evolved over time. But the Thursday Night Club is really a beautiful movie. I saw it. It's really very special. And Divine Renovation. Tell us, how did you get Eric involved in this?
So my co-producer, and really the gentleman who came up with the concept, because we were sitting around thinking about what kind of shows we could do, his idea morphed into Divine Renovation, and we loved it. And so we were on set, in fact, on the Thursday Night Club, and we were talking about this. We were already looking to the next project, and he said, "I know, I can get to Eric Estrada." Okay. So he called Eric, he had him in his phone, and he's like, "All right, buddy, listen, that sounds good. You know, when you get your ducks in a row, when that means when it's a real thing, call me." And we got our ducks in a row, and we called him, and he said, "Sure." And so he was very kind to really give us a break the first time around in terms of, how we would financially do this, but he was a great addition. Everywhere we went in Wilmington, it was like the Pied Piper. People would just pick up and walk behind him. The police, the firefighters came out to meet him on the set. They were adorable. So to see his connection with law enforcement, which is still very, very strong, and in fact, he is a police officer or a sheriff, however you want to put it, in a couple of different parts of the country. He
Oh, I never realized, didn't realize that.
he's a
He's
bona
the real
fide.
deal.
Yes, he is. He always wanted to be a cop. And he got waylaid by going to follow a pretty young lady into acting class, as we hear this many times. He wanted to meet that girl, and he walked in and he so and Eric, of course, was just charismatic and a stunning looking person. He still is at 76 years old. And so he became our buddy. He became our um, host, and just a wonderful person to work with.
That is great. And I know you have some new projects you're working on too right now. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Sure. So Divine Renovation season 1 and 2 are out on Tubi and Roku and 12 streamers and Up Faith and Family. We
Great.
uh, then, oh, I should say that Monty and I, my business partner, Monty Hobbs and I, solidified our business after a tragic event in my life, which I know you want to talk about, Cheryl. But so many things in life lead you to the next step that you don't foresee. For example, when I was asked to help produce, meaning bring in some financial resources for this company through the producers I met on the radio, my mother had just passed away. The world had changed. And I said, "Well, I don't do that." And then a bubble over my head said, why don't you do that? Why don't you try that? There's nothing to lose. The world has changed. You lost your mom. You're dealing with that tremendous loss. Try something new. And that's how I got into the producing end. Same thing happened when I lost Rick, my partner of 25 years, my darling man that you love so much, Cheryl, I know.
Yes. Yeah, a wonderful man.
And
I was going to say he was someone who truly epitomized kindness and goodness, and everyone who knew him, everyone who knew that said that and felt it just being in his presence. So I know you're going in this direction that you are is a really great homage and tribute to him as well. And I know he's looking down, applauding you every step of the way.
I can only hope. I can only hope. But after that happened, we wanted to solidify the projects we worked on. So Monty and I joined forces and founded Just Do Good Entertainment. And as you mentioned at the beginning of this, it is all about uplifting and about showing the best of people in a dark world, in a chaotic world. And so we started Just Do Good Entertainment January of 24. We were still managing Divine Renovation, looking to do season 3, which we still are. And then we said, well, we need to do something else. And we created a book with you, which I'll get to in a moment. But in terms of television projects, we developed this series called Finding Kindness. And it's a very simple concept. It's identifying an individual in the community who, despite challenges of um, economics, or perhaps they're business owners themselves, still give back in a big way. We wanted to find that guy or woman or whomever that is connected to community. And we did. It was an interesting road. We decided to shoot in Queens, New York, and Nassau County, Floral Park. And Wendy Kaufman, my dear friend, known formerly as the Snapple Lady, one of the most generous people I've ever met, was the surprise celebrity guest. Of course, she's known for her iconic television campaign for Snapple in the 90s. And she lives in Floral Park, Queens. And we identified a gentleman, uh, Zeph Nochi, who has a pizza truck and a fire engine of all things. And he's just got the most beautiful personality. And he started his business also during the pandemic, challenging, but always giving back, whether it was time, money, food, pizza. He's always giving back. So we rewarded him with some gifts. And we got Restaurant Depot involved to provide a gift certificate for him. The town got involved. It was a piece of Americana, quite honestly. And we loved it. That is on Up Faith and Family. We're shooting our second episode in January in Phoenix. And we just keep looking for new opportunities with that franchise, if you will. And the last thing we just finished shooting is a show called Air Angels, Flight Helene. And this is to celebrate the civilian pilots who, when Western North Carolina, Tennessee were completely blocked off from civilization, from any help, these people with helicopters, bush planes,
During the big hurricanes you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah.
plane of just last year, September
Right.
24, galvanized through social media their efforts and boots on the ground, command centers, food, water, baby formula. Either they hiked, or they took planes, or they took drones, or they had helicopters, whatever they could do to get to people who were in need. Unbelievable heroes. So we identified these people, civilian people, who took it upon themselves to help others. And that's what we love to do. We love to highlight those people and say, why do you do that? How do you do it? I don't have a plane. Cheryl, you don't have a plane. We're not going to be able to do that, but we can do other things to look at somebody who might be struggling or a community in need and say, how can I help? That's all we're trying to do, is pay it forward.
It's so great, and it's such a great message. And so many of us, I mean, we're bombarded with so much negativity in the media every day. I mean, there's so much going on in the world and all around us. And I know there are a lot of people you talk to, they're feeling doom and gloom. But I love your whole idea of, finding kindness and finding happiness. So what have you learned about kindness right now from doing a lot of this?
I always try, and it's really hard because I know we're all in our head as we're walking around, we're thinking, we're ruminating, we're planning, what are we having for dinner? What are we doing next week? We're in that space all the time. I try really hard to be present and to look around me and see someone who might need help. And for me particularly, I'm very aware of people who are disabled. And so when there's a disability, whether they're in a wheelchair or walker and they're struggling, I try to ask if they need assistance. And this just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. This man broke my heart. It was in Boston, and I saw him struggling with a walker, and it just reminded me of Rick a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. And I feel I was being like, how can I help you? Do you need water? He's like, get away from me, lady. What are you doing? But I kept trying to help him because he had a long way to walk and he was struggling. And I tried to get a construction worker involved. I got like the whole people involved. And he really, really wanted to do it himself. And I had to let him do it himself. And but it hurt my heart. And so I'm always looking for a disabled I'm not looking for, but if a disabled individual comes across my path, I will do whatever I can to assist if they want it.
Well, that's a great segue into the book that you also produced that I was so happy to be involved in terms of publishing. And it's called Officer Eric and the Very Special Dad. So tell our viewers and listeners what that's about, because actually that lesson was in there.
Correct.
That you just shared with us too, of someone not wanting the help and wanting to do things on their own too. So
Well, again, this happened right after Rick passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly and traumatically for me. So what does one do? How do they pick up and move forward? And the only thing I could do that made sense was to do a project that kept his name alive and honored Rick. And so Monty and I said, let's do a book. Let's do a book for kids. And the book is about this very special dad based on Rick's life. Rick Summers was his name on the radio. Um, Rick Steinhaus is his real name. And Rick had MS. He had a disability. He had a mobility disability. He was on a walker and a cane. And we integrated our buddy, Eric Estrada. And we said, hey, Eric, would you like to be part of this book? We'd like to base a character on you. And we brought in our other buddy, Steve Manchester, who wrote the Thursday Night Club. Beautiful, beautiful author.
Yeah.
Steve's books are so inspirational. They are uplifting as well and nostalgic and beautiful. And Steve's a great writer. So we had Steve and Eric write based on some points that we gave them about having a disability. Lo and behold, I did not know this. Eric's brother-in-law, his wife's brother, had MS and had passed away. So it was a perfect, all of us getting together. It was a nice opportunity. The story is very simple. Officer Eric sees this disabled man with his kids in an ice cream shop, and he stumbles and falls into another table, but he gets up with great aplomb, and he's very fun and he's very charismatic. But Officer Eric felt bad, learned he had MS, did a little research, and decided he wanted to go to the officer's house and offer help. And when he goes there, the very special dad named Zeke, says, I'm all right. I don't need help, but I'd like to help neighbors down the road. And so even though he has challenges, he's able to participate on some level. And so Eric and Zeke get together and help this elderly couple that needed some adaptations in their house. And so it's the lesson is kindness comes in all shapes and sizes. And there's a wonderful little lesson in the back of the book for families and schools to have a discussion, have a conversation about kindness, about disability, about awareness, and not labeling a disabled person just a disabled person. It's part of what they're dealing with. It's part of their life. It is not what defines them. And that's extremely important to remember for anybody dealing with a chronic illness, a disability of any kind. It's just a part of who you are. It is not who you are.
Yeah, and that was certainly a key message that Rick always embodied because he didn't let it define him. Even when he was struggling and having a tough time, he always had that great smile and great optimism. And it's a really wonderful book. And talking about disabilities with children, I think is so important because that's a topic like grief. We were talking about that earlier, that we often just don't want to talk about. So I think it's so important to get these messages out there. And as one of my other authors who wrote a book after losing her husband, she said, you never move away from the grief, but she said you move forward, but the grief walks beside you. And I thought that was a really beautiful way of describing what grief is, and over time how that does start to change in terms of what it looks like. So it's just amazing work that you're doing. I just love everything that you're bringing goodness and joy into the world. Before we leave, though, I want to just shift gears a little bit because I think this is a little important on your evolution. I hate the word reinvention because I don't think that we reinvent ourselves, because that's kind of like saying, everything we didn't matter. Now we have to become something new and different. But I think we evolve, which is what we see in your story. And so many women who are going to listen to this right now are in midlife, and very often you get to that point where you start to feel like you're stuck. So whether it's a career that you no longer like, or you're being pushed out of a relationship, or just simply not knowing what your purpose is anymore because life starts to change and kids have grown and whatnot. And I know you were at some point in that midlife, because I remember very much when this happened. You made the bold move when you left Lite FM radio, and that was you had been there for 24 years, and you just said one day, I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember us talking about it because I had done something similar, and it's like jumping off a cliff. So let's just talk about that a little bit and what gave you the courage to do that, how you kind of felt after that, because I know we both had those moments where we felt like we had totally lost who we were and our identity, and then how you evolved from there. Now, that's a lot to say. Let's
That's a
talk
lot.
about that in a few minutes. That's another whole topic, but I think it can help a lot of women listening out there.
Second part of the podcast, join us for that. Wow, that is a big topic. And how did I know? I think I didn't have a choice. I think doing the same job every day, as wonderful as it was, as delightful as it was, as the perks I had, as the fame I had, as the everything, it was amazing. It was like being, but for me, the visual was like being in this beautiful gilded box and I couldn't get out. And I had a visual in my head of crawling across a desert looking for water. That's how difficult it was for me. I said, and I was a lot younger then. This is a long time ago. I was way younger. And I said, well, I've done this for a long time, and I know there's other things I want to do. Um, the contract was coming up for renewal, my contract, and I had the opportunity, the out. And there was a loophole in how I could actually financially do this, and it all worked out. So financially, it worked out for me at that moment, and I took the leap because I had a moment. I assessed all my situations. I assessed what could happen. They did offer me a new contract. I knew it was another 2 years, but I had that moment, and it was either yes or no. And I look at signs all the time around my life. And I had taken off a day. It was the end of the year, and this was 2007. So literally 2008 is when I left. It was the very end of the year. I'd taken a day off or two to do some other things. And I was in a subway station and on 50th Street, I think. And there was a country, of all things in New York City, a country singer who had a lyric that was like, Valerie, I'm talking to you. And the lyric, I thought I would never forget it, but I did. It almost was like a dream. It was like a dream. The lyric was, now's the time. Do what you need to do. Do what you need to do. And I'm like, that's it. I got it. This is what I'm going to do. So I went back and I went to the powers that be and I asked them to do one thing for me, which they couldn't do. And then I said, well, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to move on. And I did. And that was 2008. Oh, the whole world changed. It was,
Exactly.
it was a financial disaster. And I'm sitting there because I had another job offer, actually, which then went away. It was another job. It was another radio station, but it was different. That job offer slid right off the table. And then I'm like, okay, okay.
What
And
have I done?
yeah, and it was winter of 2008, and it was a brutal winter. And I'm walking around Midtown in stores. There's nobody in the stores. And I'm like, whoa, whoa. Um, my identity took a hit, huge. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want to go to any events. I didn't want to have parties because people would always say, what do you do? And I always had an identity. I had an answer. Oh, I'm on the radio. I didn't have any answer. That was really hard. But I credit you, as I always do, Cheryl, because there's so many points you and I have met that have been stunning in our lives.
Yeah,
And I should
exactly.
write a book together because we have had so many stunning points. And you invited me to host something at the Yale Club, sort of like a reinvention thing, women who've made changes.
Hmm.
And I was there, and my sister was there actually. And a woman came up to me at that event and said, I need some help. I have an internet radio show. This is a long time ago. I have an internet radio show and I really don't know what I'm doing. I could use your help. I said, I can't help you. I really don't know how I do what I do. I have no idea. She said, but no, you've done radio. I said, yes, but I don't know how I did it. She said, I'll pay you. And I was like, oh, well then. So she was my
Let me
first,
figure this out.
she's my first client. I said, send me your tapes. Sat down and I wrote notes and notes and notes and notes. She became my first client, and I coached her and I helped her and nurtured her, and things changed for her. And I saw the light in her eyes. And then when I saw the light in her eyes, I said, well, I can do this for other people. And that began my consulting and coaching with individuals in media and media presentation. And then I would present to large companies, and that snowballed. But I was still hosting and I was still doing voice work, and I cobbled together a little career. And little by little, I rose this ladder and I became something else. And now I don't even think about my radio career at all. I mean, I love it and I miss it, but
Right.
so many other things that are going on that are tremendous and fun. So I think the lesson of this is um, keep your eyes open and keep your ears open and see what's around you, see what people are needing, see what you can offer. And what I do suggest people do is take this big whiteboard and write down the things you love to do, the skills you believe you do well, the things you don't like to do, and somehow magically you can craft a path. In today's world, you can craft a path. It's so available. Internet, AI, opportunities around the world. It's a global economy. It's a global economy. See how you can fit in.
That is really perfect advice, Valerie. It's really, really well said. So I hope any woman sitting and listening to this now who's feeling stuck, and I hear this from so many women, I don't know, I've lost my job, after 30 years. Now what do I do with it? And then when you start to ask them, well, what are some of the things you're good at? They suddenly start to realize, well, actually, I know a lot. I've learned a lot. And how do I apply that somewhere else? So I think that really helps to open up people's eyes and mind to what can be done. And then the other powerful lesson, and listen to your story, is the power of saying yes to things, okay, I may not know how to do this, but okay, let me think about that. Yes, I can direct. Yes, I can teach voiceover. Yes, I can write a book. So whatever that is, um, just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of jumping off the cliff and trying something new.
Well, I'm going
So,
to say, no, you can be afraid. Be afraid, but do it anyway. You're not going to,
well,
the
yeah.
fear is there. I mean, I'm terrified. When I started teaching a school of visual arts, I was an adjunct instructor for many years. I was terrified. They were looking up at me like I knew everything. I didn't know. And I didn't know how to deal with students. Not one-on-one, I was fine, but this is like 10, 12 people. And then I was just terrified. And I hated it at first. I came home to Rick. I'm like, I hate this. But again, when I saw the light in their eyes, it changed everything. They reflected back to me. They taught me so much as students. And so it became a
Yeah,
cooperation,
that's
you know.
great.
And the other thing I want to say, Cheryl, and I know you have a time constraint, is look ahead. If you're in a job, markets are changing and AI is changing everything as we
It
speak.
is.
Start to look ahead. Don't get caught unawares. Don't think you'll be there forever in your job. Think about your next step before it happens. Start thinking about this years before. And this is for younger people too. It's one thing when you're hitting 55 or 60. Think about this at 40, 45, 50. These are things you have to look ahead, be ahead of the curve. Read business publications. Don't be in the dark. See what's going on. Look at trends.
Well, that is all great advice. I thank you for that. I thank you so much for doing this today and for bringing kindness and joy into the world, and that we can find kindness every day, if not only if we look around, but also if we're doing things to be kind. And it does come back to you. I really do believe that. So I wish you every success with all these wonderful projects that you're doing. And we'll continue the story in another podcast soon because we've only just begun. So thanks again, Valerie.
Thank you, Cheryl. It's been great.